Hello, everyone. I am Jeff Seidman, and welcome to the Jeff Seidman Fitness Podcast. Today, I've got a real special treat for you, and that is Drew Avery. He is one of the original winners of the 1997 Body of Work 12-Week Transformation Challenge. And here are his winning 12-week challenge pictures. A truly amazing change in just 12 short weeks. Now, Drew and I were both winners of the 1997 challenge. And here is the magazine that got it all started. The January 1997 issue of Muscle Media magazine that promoted the 12-week challenge, with the winner getting that badass red Lamborghini right there and a $50,000 cash prize. So without further ado, let's welcome Drew Avery to the show. How you doing, Drew?
Hey, Jeff. Great to be here. Actually excited. Your first podcast out of the gate, so I'm glad to be here and look forward to reminiscing. I haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, we're going to do a little bit of catching up, and I'm sure I'm going to find out things I didn't know before. So anyway, Drew, let's just jump right into this. Do you remember the moment you decided to do the Body of Work Challenge, and what was going on in your life back then?
Well, I lived in Albuquerque at the time. I had a company that financed cars. And at the time, I was going through a divorce, a 14-year marriage, and we decided to end it. And so, you know, when you go through those kind of things, you kind of take that opportunity to reassess, your life, what direction you want to go. And it was interesting because at that time, I had run across Bill Phillips' magazine, Muscle Media 2000. And I was an athlete growing up. I did enjoy lifting weights. I didn't have tremendous results in the gym. I did okay, but nothing that you would see in the magazines. But what was so interesting about Muscle Media was that, if you remember, it was really one of the first magazines after Weider, the Weider publications, that really was kind of uncovering the truth of natural bodybuilding and uncovering some of the strategies that the everyday guy could use, as opposed to some of the stuff you were seeing in the more traditional weight training magazines. And it was just that perfect timing where I was motivated to get back to the gym. And when I saw the magazine that you put up, by the way, that it was that insert, and I was like, wow, this is the right moment to do this. What a motivating time to make this decision to get into shape. A Lamborghini, a 5-year endorsement contract, which was $50,000. These were really motivating, and it was something that I just found myself, I had the time to kind of commit to it, in the sense that I had no longer in a relationship and could spend the gym time. And so that was the genesis of it all. And it was so funny because I know when we all talked in Denver, when we went up there, that red magazine really did, that red insert that you showed earlier really did have an impact on all of us, because you just didn't see that. Here's an everyday guy that could enter a contest and literally be featured nationwide and have this amazing car and endorsement contract. You just didn't see that in the marketplace at the time, in the fitness arena. And wow, perfect timing, and it just lit a fire under me. So that was the origination of it all.
Wow, I had no idea you were going through so many changes back then, but yeah, interesting. We all got motivated. We were in different phases in our life. For me, I had just taken a long break from working out, and I was thinking about working out. I just couldn't get myself to actually do it. Once I saw that magazine, it lit the fire underneath my butt, So anyways, Drew, back in 1997, the internet was really just beginning, and we did not have access to websites, YouTube, or social media like we have today. So how were you able to get the information you needed to make such an incredible transformation?
Well, I have to agree. Isn't it amazing in this day and time what these guys have available to them compared to what we had? And we sound like, those young, in our day, we had to look it up in a magazine or whatever, but really it wasn't near as available as it is today. And I'd have to say that there was one thing that I believe made the primary difference in every other attempt I'd had to gain muscle and go to the gym and get serious. Was there was one end of it where Muscle Media 2000 really had, I'd say, good core training information that was good for natural bodybuilders. I think that gave me just a foundation of training. But the real key to this was, it'll be interesting if you remember this, but Bill had a guy by the name of Keith Klein. Keith Klein was a nutritionist out of Houston, and he was featured in the magazine, and he personally had shown kind of his results, and he was a nutritionist. So I felt like this guy knew more than I did about how to do this. I contacted Keith and said, hey, I'm entering this contest and I want to win it. I want you to design a diet for me. And he agreed. And I think the only caveat to the whole thing is he said, okay, I'm going to do this for you, but remember something. How has your progress been up to this point? Well, and I'd say, well, not great. He says, well, then listen to what I say and do it. Don't question it, just do it. And so I did. I was eating at that. I went from just eating a couple to 3 meals a day to 6 meals a day. And each one was weighed and measured and all these different things. And that was really the foundation, utilizing my years of weight training, which was not extensive, but it was okay. Muscle Media magazine, which gave me kind of a foundational look at what the training could be and should be for a natural bodybuilder. And then ultimately layer on top of that, which was the most important element at that time for me, was the diet. Because you just can't appreciate I think the dedication and difficulty of getting your body fat down below, let's say, 7%. And that's really diet and some training techniques. But that was it. So to answer your question, it was primarily Muscle Media magazine, and then ultimately aligning myself with somebody that was an experienced nutritionist. And that set me on my way.
Yeah, it's funny because I've communicated with Keith a few times since I've won that contest. And actually, I'm friends with him on Facebook, and I'll comment on posts every once in a while. But, specifically regarding your nutrition and other things, what were the changes you made psychologically? Because that's really the biggest part, physically and nutritionally, more specifically. What did you do to achieve such amazing results?
Well, I found that when I decided to enter that contest and the prizes were so motivating, I just said, look, I am going to finish this thing come hell or high water. I just committed myself psychologically that this was going to happen. And interestingly enough, I also did a lot of mental work. Every day I would envision myself walking up to the Lamborghini and, touching the mirror and then opening the door, and also being up at EAS headquarters. But there was enough pictures from the magazine of EAS headquarters I could kind of piece together what it would be like to be there. And I ran through those mental exercises daily. And I found that that visualization was not only helpful in terms of keeping me on track, but gosh, Jeff, ultimately I did everything that I saw in those dreams or in that visualization. So we can talk about that later on after winning, but that really was shocking to be able to literally do what I've been seeing for in my mind for the last 90 days. So, but let me just round it up by saying this. I think there were two factors. One was just initially mentally engaging that I was going to do this no matter what. And two, we had to take that before picture. As you know, that's your evidence of how you looked when you started the contest. But I decided to take pictures all along the way, just to to chart, kind of gauge how well I was doing. And at the end of 30 days, it was shocking because honestly, you see yourself every day. So it was hard to tell. And on the scale, what was even more shocking is I weighed the same as when I started. And that, if I had used that as my indicator, it would have been depressing. But that picture showed me that ironically, that first month, I had gained 7 pounds of muscle and simultaneously lost 7 pounds of fat. So that switch still showed no change on the scale, but visually you could clearly see it. And once I saw that, that was I think officially the thing that finally really lit that fire, because now I knew what Keith had been telling me, just follow this. And when you have a picture, and that would be my recommendation for anybody who's doing something like this, even if it's for your own edification, take those pictures, because you can't really appreciate the changes you're making so quickly. And if you don't memorialize that in a picture, you may be taking a lot of motivation away from yourself.
So,
Yeah,
Drew,
next question.
Very interesting, because I did a couple of things that were similar to what you mentioned as far as visualization goes. I actually cut out that picture of the Lamborghini in the magazine, and I took a picture of me and I cut my head out and I put it in the driver's seat of that Lamborghini and I put it above my desk, and I would look at that every day. So it just goes to show how important visualization is. I mean, even with the businesses you've started, I've started, it all started with visualizing it first inside our head and then figuring out how to get to that ultimate goal. And the other thing I want to mention regarding your answer is you mentioned you took progress pictures along the way. The following contest, the Body for Life contest, the following one, they may have taken that idea from you, but they said you need to send in a 4-week picture and a 12-week picture. And maybe, I don't know if you had told them that helped you with your progress, but they followed that same principle in the contest following, which ours was just a before and after the 12 weeks. But in the next series of Body for Life challenges, they included the 4-week picture. So that was interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know for certain, but I do remember that what I did was, and we'll talk later on about the actual contest packet that I submitted. But in that contest packet, I had submitted a lot of those pictures along the way, just because, and I put on there, this is if this jeopardizes the contest, don't open. But these are other pictures, just because, remember, it said in the contest packet, don't give them a bunch of pictures. But I felt like this would be helpful to them because they could see progress along the way. And so I submitted it in hopes it wouldn't cause a problem. It didn't. So I don't know, but there were a couple things along the way that I noticed in the next, that we were doing in our contest that they ultimately pushed over into the next. And I think taking pictures was one of them.
Yeah. So Drew, during your 12-week transformation, was it smooth sailing the whole way, or did you encounter any challenges during that 12-week transformation?
Well, I had one big challenge along the way, but really, I think more than anything, the challenges are the same challenges that a lot of people would experience. Fatigue, you're training and dieting every day. There is a fatigue, a mental fatigue that comes with that. There's days you don't feel like training. There's days you don't feel like eating what you're eating. But I found that those were all fairly minor. The motivation to win and the daily visualization really took care of most of that. But what happened was 1 month approximately before submitting pictures, my brother had come to visit in town. We went to a grocery store. He had a brand new pickup truck. And when we were leaving the grocery store, we saw 2 guys taking this brand new tailgate off of his truck, literally opening up and pulling the tailgate off, putting it into the back of their truck. And so we run up, and without going into too deep a story, there was an altercation. And in that altercation, I hit the guy, and his tooth broke off in my knuckle.
Wow.
And so, but the problem is that his spit was on that tooth, and it got into the interior of the knuckle. And within 48 hours, you couldn't see the top of my hand. It was so swollen. I had to have emergency surgery. I was in the hospital for 5 days on an IV drip. I almost lost that knuckle over that incident.
Wow.
And so I had 5 days of sitting in a hospital bed, fretting, about the fact that all this time and effort I put into the contest, all for this stupid, event. But luckily enough, I felt like I had enough control over my diet in the hospital where I didn't go too far off in terms of my weight. If anything, Jeff, when you're training so hard consistently, sometimes a few days off actually helps. I would not have taken those days off normally, but I did. And I kept my carbs low, so I didn't feel like I was, again, cheating and disrupting my diet too much. And long story short, as I stepped right back in, it took me a few days to I had kind of a brace thing going on. I worked around it, and I made it through. But by the skin of my teeth. That if that had done a little bit more damage, I probably wouldn't be able to finish the contest.
Wow, interesting story. So, Drew, once you finished your 12-week transformation and you saw your before and after pictures side by side, were you happy, unhappy? Did you think I got this, or what were your thoughts when you saw those before and after pictures side by side?
Well, okay, this goes back to why it makes really good sense to take pictures all along the way, because it's one thing to take your before picture, that's no big deal. But you start taking pictures along the way, you start noticing, hey, this is kind of a better angle for my body. Not only do the pictures help you evaluate your progress, of course that's important, but I realized in taking those pictures that, hey, just because I'm in good shape, that angle does not look good, or it doesn't exemplify my physique or showcase it as much as I would like. I also noticed lighting conditions and I experimented with different backgrounds. I think if you remember, I don't know if you remember this story, Jeff, but I had taken the contest so seriously that I even tailored my shorts for the after picture, because I noticed even if you're lean, if your shorts aren't right and that band can pull into you a little bit, it gives a kind of a deception of that you're overweight, right? So I caught all those little things in the pictures leading up to the final. So now, final day, it's nerve-wracking because, this really represents where the rubber meets the road. This represents everything you've done for that 90 days. And if it doesn't come out right, no matter how much work you put into it, it's all for naught. So I hedged my bet. I tried a morning shoot against a background, and I tried an evening shoot with hoping that I'd get that golden sunlight you get on when the sun is setting. And so we did the morning shoot and on the background, and then we went ahead and I was so lucky. It was a cloudy day, and literally 30 minutes before I drove to the base of the Sandia Mountains, we'd found a spot to do this. The clouds opened up like 30 minutes before the shot was to be had. Everything landed right into place. I practiced posing the poses I thought would be good. Then the next day when we got the photos, the morning session was terrible. It just did not look right. The background, it wasn't good. And the evening pictures was like, it was maybe the best shots I've ever taken up to that point. And and I was a little drier, I was holding a little more water in the morning. And so in the evening, I had better definition as well. So I lucked out preparation and practice along the way. And anybody that I coached that was doing the subsequent contests, I'd say, guys, force yourself to take those pictures. Get used to taking pictures. Look at your face, how you smile. Make sure when you're flexing, you've got symmetry in your posing, because this is it. You blow it on that day, you're sunk, really. So
yeah, your pictures. I remember when I saw them, and still today, they're magazine quality pictures. You really did an incredible job with your pictures. I mean, very impressive. Even when I just showed them right now, I'm just like, wow, they're stunning. How the lighting, your posing, you could have been on the cover of a magazine. But anyways, so Drew,
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So next you mailed in your transformation packet and you waited. And as we saw in the documentary, they approached you sitting outside at a cafe table. And obviously you did not know you were a winner yet. So how did they set that up? What did they tell you?
Well, it was one of those situations where they called me up and said I hadn't won. So can you imagine if you gotten that call based on how much work you put in?
They did the same thing with me. They called me.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Isn't that funny that we didn't? Maybe we talked about it back then, but I didn't remember that. Okay, so they tell me I didn't win, but here was their story. They said, Drew, you really did an amazing job with your packet, and we want to highlight this because of what you did. And I'll tell you what I did with my packet in just a minute. And so, as I guess pleased as I was that I did something that they found, worthwhile to talk about, it was still devastating. And they said it was not Sean Phillips, but the other Sean that had met me there at a Starbucks. Because I said, well, we'll meet at Starbucks to have a coffee and kind of talk it through and have fun. And so I'm sitting there really still kind of depressed. I have to be honest. It was like, I don't want to be doing this. I want to be, and then we I don't know, 30 seconds of conversation, a minute of conversation went by, and then Bill comes out from behind the pillars. And boy, again, there's very few people that probably can have this discussion with, but when you see Bill Phillips, you did it, right? I mean, it's like, yes. No way, this actually happened, And so, I got a very short time with Bill. It was fun, but it was short. Well, you get to work out with Bill, which was, a really great thing as well. But swinging back on my side, it was a shock. They did a fantastic job of tricking me. And I'll tell you real quick what I did with my packet. And that is, I felt like there was going to be a lot of people submitting packets. So first off, I took my packet apart and laminated every page. So this light and flexible book became this really heavy, solid piece of, it actually had some weight to it. And if you remember, this was a little flimsy thing. So I made it this big, heavy thing. The glossiness and made the photos come out, the glossiness of the plastic and a whole thing. And then the other thing that I did, I felt like I wanted to make sure that my transformation was legitimized, because I went to the University of New Mexico, and I didn't do caliper testing for my body fat. I literally did dunk tank, because I wanted to prove. I did a dunk tank at the beginning and a dunk tank at the end. So I have wanted no question, that anything was doctored or there's no problem. So I think I remember talking to Rayhan, who was with EAS at the time, Rayhan Jalali, and he mentioned that packet was so heavy it stood out from the group. So I think in that sense, it helped me, over maybe, because Jeff, there were some impressive physiques. When I looked at some of the contests, people that didn't win, it's like, wow, I felt lucky.
Yeah, I agree. So that was Sean Brown that came out to meet you.
That's right.
Yeah, Sean Brown. And actually, I'm friends with him on Facebook, and I've communicated with him a few times also. But you really put a lot of effort into your packet, making it look professional. I mean, a lot of details. You really paid attention to everything. So I can only imagine how you paid attention to your nutrition and everything else as well. Although I paid attention to my nutrition with my packet, I just followed the directions that they said and I mailed it in. But yeah, you really paid attention to the details. So Drew, all 10 category champions were then flown out to Golden, Colorado for a 3-day weekend to be held at the EAS Muscle Media headquarters to ultimately choose one overall winner. Now, this is going to be a big question. What was your overall experience, your opinions, thoughts of the other competitors, the atmosphere, and the entire weekend in general?
Well, I have to say it was pretty overwhelming in the sense that, gosh, you know, all that visualization and then it's actually happening right there. That was surreal. And then for all of us to be in, it was so strange because on one hand, there's a lot of camaraderie, but there's an underlying competition and there's a lot on the line, you know? And so there's all these conflicting emotions because you know, really genuinely, I enjoyed all the champions and I really was intrigued to listen to their stories because everybody busted ass. Really, everybody dug in and did a fantastic job. And gosh, remember as time went on, because you know the contest said that we were going to have to judge each other. And we ultimately formed a friendship to a degree that we didn't want to be put in that position. But before we go back to that, let me just again kind of talk a little bit more about EAS headquarters. I mean, to be in there, what an amazing facility right off the bat. We go in there and all our transformation stuff is on the walls, walking down the hallway. You know, what an amazing training area we had. We go in, there's photographers, all these training stations. We're given EAS supplements, you know, galore. It was just, again, I speak only for myself, but I think we all kind of, like when you're seeing this and you've been seeing it in the magazine for this long and you're interacting with Bill and there's Sean Phillips and, you know, all that. It was just one of the best experiences of my life, for sure, you know. And again, I just found that it was so filled with mixed emotions because on one hand, you're really trying to stand out, you know, but on the other hand, you really like the people you're hanging with. And you don't want to be, at least in my case, I didn't want to be like the showboater that was trying to do this over the top stuff to get the judge's attention, to cause that controversy that some of them were looking for. I didn't do that. And this reminds me, if you don't, I'm just rambling, but you know, it's so funny as you were revisiting some of the stuff, remembering things. I remember when they were filming us, talking about our experiences and trying to build a story. At that time, we didn't know it was for body of work. But that's what they were doing. They were videoing all this to showcase what we were doing. And I remember it being such a positive experience for me, my whole transformation. And in the interviews, they really wanted me to talk about some of the real challenges that I had and the divorce and some of this. And I understand why, because this is the message that you'd want to hand out, to give other people that other people that want to do the contest. They need to see the challenges and they need to empathize with you. But interestingly enough, I said, guys, honestly, I don't want to talk anything negative. Let me tell you about how positive this was for me, how it completely changed my life and all these things. And they weren't overly thrilled about that. That was the only thing. It's like, Drew, we would like you to give me more. But I just didn't want to go negative, you know, in the sense I didn't want to rehash, you know, some of the challenges in my life. I think that hurt me in getting footage and body at work. But it did speak to the fact that, man, this was an amazing experience for me, really positive, even in light of some of the challenges. And so all I can say is it really, the whole experience was just one of those things that, you know, it was once in a lifetime. It really was to be associated with something that really was nationwide. it was just bigger than all of us. And the timing was perfect. And the people we associated with were good, so it was amazing.
Yeah. So I
answer, but it was.
No. I like your answer, and it made me think about a lot regarding that. And I will say, so I was really struck the same way you were when I went out to the headquarters, and I was like, man, this is a seriously professional, but not only professional environment, first class. I mean, nothing.
Yeah.
I had not seen something superior to that in really any business. He was first class on everything he did, even the way he treated us and the way he put us up in hotels and gave us things. Very, very generous in general, but also high quality, first class, everything. And I felt the same way you did. Of course, I wanted to win, but when I got out there and I met everybody was so cool. I was like, now this is really perplexing because I want to win, but everybody else deserves to win just as much as I do. Everybody's transformation that was there was just incredible. And everybody much had an incredible personality and deserved to win. So it was really, a great story. And it's just, so I understand the contradiction that you were going through mentally, because I was going through the same thing. I want to win, but these guys are great too, Anyway, so Drew, yeah, go ahead.
No, I know we want to move on to another question, but it's so funny when you're making me think about different situations we had. Wasn't it nerve-wracking? And people probably can't appreciate this, but remember when they called us in one at a time? Because now we weren't judging each other. Now the whole panel of people at EAS was going to judge us. And we sat down at that table with that money in front of us and all those people around us. And then they started grilling us like, okay, why do you think you need to be champion? And tell us, man, that was tough. It was tough because everybody I thought had a good story. For me to say, well, I'm better. It's like, well, I have my own story and I'm unique, but God, these guys are great. And I don't want to put somebody else down for me, but it was nerve-wracking, I thought, to be in that situation.
Yeah, Drew, it's funny that you mentioned that situation because I'm not saying it was tougher for me in that situation, but I don't know if you remember. They called me up from the whole group up there and they pulled me up there and they said, Jeff, you failed the steroid test. I said, it was a polygraph. You followed you failed right. The polygraph. And this was in front of everybody that was there at the table. And good thing they edited the movie, because when they said that, I actually couldn't speak. I had a frog that went into my throat. I was in shock. I couldn't believe it. And so anyway, so they told me that I had failed the polygraph. Although we all took a steroid test, I failed the polygraph test. So then I went downstairs into the gym where you all were. You guys were all like, what happened down up there? So because I was the first one called up, and I came downstairs devastated. And I told everybody, I said, listen, I don't want to freak you guys out, but they just called me up there to tell me I failed the polygraph and I may be excluded from the contest. And so I just want to tell all of you, just in case you guys failed the polygraph also, start preparing your question, because I wasn't prepared. I was in shock and I couldn't even speak. But anyway, so that was really a devastating part of that weekend. But I will say the rest of the weekend, even including them surprising me, like you said, it was surreal, completely surreal, because I had envisioned it just like you. I had, used my just focusing on that Lamborghini winning. And so when it actually happened, just like you, I felt like when Bill walked up, I was like a deer in the headlights. I was in shock. And even after Bill left, when that initial time they came up to me, I was still in shock for, I'd say, a good hour or two. And that whole weekend was a surreal weekend, because it was the culmination of everything we busted our ass for 3 months, nonstop focus, just winning that contest, and then it actually happened. So it just goes to show how manifestation and focus is 100% real. And I still use that today, manifestation and focus, and it works. It's reality. But anyways, I'm getting off track. So anyways, I want to ask you the next question.
Well, but hey, listen. We left out one, I think, important part of the weekend, and that is, it was, and by the way, I may have to take credit for one thing related to this. If you remember, we were all downstairs in the gym, and we were being taught. They were talking about the voting, and we all said we don't want to vote, and I blurted out, well, we should all get a Lamborghini, something along those lines, and because we all did have our own stories. We all have our own strengths from a marketing standpoint. And then we go to the final night, and they didn't tip their hand at all with us. I had no idea who was going to win this thing, really. And for him to get up there and say, well, we're selling the Lamborghini and giving you all Corvettes, and you all get to have the 5-year endorsement contract. Holy cow, what a great ending. I mean, nobody felt left out. Nobody left empty-handed. And what a great, smart thing that Bill did, because it allowed him to take all of our stories that speak to different people. My story spoke differently than yours. Porter's story spoke differently. Lynn's story spoke different. Meredith. So, you could look at that, and each one was an inspiration to a whole generation of people that were buying the magazine that weren't necessarily empathizing with myself or you. Maybe it's Meredith, but it was amazing. All I can say is Bill really did a fantastic job by making that decision. I agree.
No, I agree. Not because I'm sure he wasn't solely thinking about marketing. He was just like, hey, man, all these guys deserve it. But from a marketing perspective, it was a genius move as well. But anyways, Drew, so moving on to the next question. So knowing what you now know 25 years later, is there anything about the protocol you followed during your 12-week transformation that you would change if you were to do the same challenge today to get even better results?
Yeah, I would have done a fair amount more leg training. I felt like that would have helped me put more mass on my physique. So I think that was probably right off the bat, number one. Number two, I felt like the number of exercises, although highly effective for a transformation, was limiting in the sense that I should have been doing more functional exercises for the long haul. Yeah, it worked beautifully for the transformation, but really I felt like for sure longevity, the physique, more functional training, more multi-joint training. Again, only just because I think as we talk later on in the interview about what we're doing today, I think it plays into a physique that has longevity. And so those two things, leg training and more functional training.
Yeah, I will say probably based on what I've learned from you today, you probably put the most effort into all the small details with everything you did out of everybody I've spoke to. I haven't spoken to them in years, but I remember at the challenge, just listening to the detail that you put into everything from your shorts to the lighting to working with Key Klein. I mean, you really put a lot of effort into even the finest details of really achieving your best results. So so Drew, what have you been doing with your life for the past 25 years? And what are you currently up to?
Well, interestingly enough, after the contest, after our kind of 5-year endorsement run, Well, you know what? Let me talk about that 5-year endorsement run for a little bit. Which is, and you and I really have never talked about this, but I talk about what I experienced in being a representative for the company for 5 years, and it was an incredible positive pressure that was on me and really the rest of us, in the sense that when you get that much coverage nationwide, you're almost like a gunslinger, in the sense that you're coming to town and now, you got to prove yourself against the locals. And sure enough, every time, and I was very lucky, because Bill had allowed me to do that special training report that went out really all over the world. And so it allowed me to travel to a lot of gyms and give talks and these kind of things. But the fact that we had to stay in what I consider to be close to photo ready condition for a long period of time created really rock solid foundational habits. Because most people, they do the contest, it's over, it was great and fine, but then life comes back in and it's disruptive. But we didn't have that. We couldn't do that. We had money on, we're getting paid to look a certain way. And what a great job that is. I mean, I thought, gosh, I could do to be paid to train. And that's what most, people say, oh, if I could just be paid to train, how amazing that was. But we really kind of were. But we had to stay in shape for 5 straight years, really. I mean, in the sense that people were still remembering the body of work. They were still remembering EAS contest. And you can't even imagine the number of times I had to lift up my shirt and say, well, you still doing it? To prove that I was still leading that lifestyle.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's what I found immediately after the contest. That was really dramatically different. The other thing, I went from this guy in the gym that's kind of quiet to himself to now every time I went to the gym, I had to talk and give advice and all those different things. So that changed dramatically. Oh, Jeff, I'm sorry. You're making me go down memory lane. We missed something that was so important from the previous question. What was it like for us to go to the Arnold Classic? Come on. The Arnold. We went to the Arnold, Jeff. We were signing autographs and taking pictures all day, meeting John Elway, Shannon Sharp, Terrell Davis, all of our kind of bodybuilding heroes. But remember how our booth was lined up as far as you could see, people that wanted to take pictures. I mean, that's mind-blowing. Like you and I, we're just average guys that kind of were living our life, got into the gym, got into shape, and then to be put into that setting where we were getting, I was watching the booth next to us, and we had, oh, for goodness sake, the Australian bodybuilder. Oh, for goodness sake.
Yeah,
that age. I'm 61, and there you go. The bodybuilder from Australia has got the tattoos on his face.
Oh yeah, that's God, the short guy. Yeah. Anyways,
isn't that ridiculous?
I'll think of it.
That's ridiculous. But anyway, we were doing. He was in his prime, in a sense that his career was in his prime. But our booth was just packed. But just once again, what an amazing experience to go from these, guys that are just kind of hanging out at a gym to literally, Jeff, I'm telling you, if I said I signed 1,000 autographs, I don't think I'm over exaggerating on that. It was just nonstop. What an amazing time. What an amazing time.
I will say it was fun to be a celebrity. I mean, because that's what we were. We were celebrities. And even, I had moved to South Beach after I won. And going to South Beach, a lot of people are into fitness in South Beach in Miami. I was recognized everywhere I went. People driving their cars down the road yelling, Jeff Seidman, it was unbelievable. And I was like, this is so cool. And people inviting me to the VIPs, people, going out of their way to come over to me and say hello. And I mean, it was fun to be a celebrity for a little while. So anyways,
Yeah.
Drew, getting back to what have you been doing for the last 25 years?
Well, after our endorsement contract ended, I ended up working with Meredith Brown, one of our co-champions, brother. I moved out to California. I had some opportunities after EAS to do some fitness modeling stuff, and you just can't really do much in New Mexico, really. So moved out to California and ultimately started a marketing / event company with Meredith's brother. And so did that for a few years, and then had an amazing opportunity to be the video production guy for the National Association of Realtors, something completely off track, but I got to travel the whole United States and the world, really, shooting videos. So wow. It allowed me to again travel all over the world, United States, and again produce videos, which was just a fantastic job. Also at that time, I still periodically train people. I'm not as you know, I didn't do personal training, but I did design programs and coached. And that was around 2015, after really experiencing what I consider to be a noticeable trend in people failing to transform, to lose weight. And the big culprit was sugar, really. And they'd come to me and say, I really want to do this transformation. And usually between 3 and 10 days later, that willpower fell away and, they are off their diet and, off track. So long story short is I did a fair amount of research and found a product that dealt with sugar cravings and produced ultimately, after 44 attempts of formulations, came up with a product that worked very quickly and did not require willpower. So I've been selling that since 2015. And just recently, my wife and I started a home care business because there's so much of the population has gotten older. She specializes in senior care, and it just seemed like a really good fit. And so we're a couple months into our brand new home care business. So
awesome, great. So Drew, is there anything else you want to add, or anything else you want to say? Because really, seems like we've gone through quite a bit here.
Well, I am. A lot of people ask me what I'm doing from a fitness standpoint these days, and what I've done is I shifted my whole way of thinking regarding exercise. I've not done a lot of weight training for probably about the last 5 years, and what I put in place was a system that it's a hobby / project I'm working on, where I'm trying to create exceptional movement patterns and longevity in the body by aligning the bones and the tissue, number one. Number two, creating a balance between the left and right side. An example would be if you're right-handed and try to write, and then you put it in your left hand and you try to write with your left hand, it's not near as fluid. Well, people don't realize that is going on through their entire body, and that causes this contortion over the years, this twisting and this contortion. Long story short is, what I'm doing is focusing on exercises, highly functional exercises, but more in line with repairing the body, aligning it, because at 61, I want to continue for years to come. But the problem is, and I'm sure you're well aware of this, people can come into the gym and they want to get into shape, but if their bodies are misaligned or they've got some injuries that they haven't addressed, you can only go so far before things start breaking down. And then when they break down, then
plus you're reinforcing the misalignment by working out when you're misaligned. So it's
it's reinforcing bad habits. Yeah. So what I decided to do was I backed off that with the intention, yes, there'll be a point which I go back to weight training in a more substantial way. But really, I am in a point where I'm taking this 60-year-old body and realigning it, rebalancing it, giving my joints more range of motion, and getting myself to where I can really pressure test those joints in a substantial way in my later years. And that's important because so many times if you don't do that, those joints keep breaking down and breaking down and breaking down, and you get more and more dysfunctional to the point where even if you want to train, you can't. And then you have this workout program that is just kind of working around injuries. And that's a problem because, you know, you lose muscle mass over time, you lose flexibility and all that. So basically, I've turned that all into where I'm focusing almost exclusively right now on range of motion, really toughening up those joints, because the next stage in this hobby or project I'm working on is then introducing a variety of different exercises that test my body in different ways and put pressure on those joints in different ways without breakdown. So, I hope that you and I are doing an interview 20 years from now and still able to maintain, you know, a level of conditioning that we're proud of. And so that's kind of really what I've been working on.
Well, I will say, if you listen to any longevity expert speak, they say joint health is the most important thing, because even if you're strong, if your joints are destroyed or they're injured, you can't train. So you will lose that strength. So joint health, especially as we age, when it comes to longevity, is the most important thing you want to focus on. So you can do those exercises that do keep your muscles strong and increase your health and longevity and quality of life. So Drew, it's been a great interview. So can you tell us how people would get a hold of you if they wanted to find you, whether it's on social media or email address, or how can they get a hold of you?
Well, you know what? I've got an email address that probably be easy to remember. Drew Avery at strive-homecare.com. That's probably the fastest and easiest way to get a hold of me. Drew at strive-homecare.com. Yeah, you just put my information in the information below the video, and please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. And I guess, you know, if you've got a sugar craving problem, please feel free to go on Amazon, sugarsuppress60.com. It works in 60 seconds, guaranteed or your money back. But other than that, you know, it looks like you and I, Jeff, have done okay over the years. We're staying with it and still enjoying fitness, still at it. And that says a lot.
Yeah, Drew, it's great to catch up with you. This has been a great interview. A lot of people would be very interested in what you have to say. So I guess that's it, Drew. So thanks for being my first guest on my first podcast, even though you could see the internet reception wasn't the best, but still everything you had to say was really interesting. Great to hear. And I want to thank all
Jeff,
of you.
Hey, look, it was an honor.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No, really, Jeff, it was such a surprise to hear from you, and then to get to do the first one. Thanks. I really enjoyed it. I hope it opens the opportunity to have more, maybe have the group on, because this was fun.
Yeah. And I will be doing another podcast with you in the future, just because I want something with a little bit better reception as well. But ultimately, who knows what it's going to lead to. But anyways, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to my premiere podcast. My next interview is going to be with Brad Wadlow, another champion of the 1997 Body of Work Challenge. So tune in, everybody. It's been great. And Drew, thank you again. Take care, everybody.
Have a great time, Jeff.